Stop explaining yourself. Right now. That habit is costing you respect. Most people talk too much when they feel attacked. They defend, they justify, they react. But Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, and he mastered one weapon most people never learn: silence. Not weakness, not fear, power. There are 9 specific situations where silence makes you untouchable, and if you speak in those moments, you lose leverage. When someone insults you, when someone doubts you, when someone tries to provoke you, the average person explodes. But the Stoic observes, because silence does something terrifying to your opponent, it forces them to face themselves, and most people cannot handle that mirror. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion." Imagine that level of control. In the next few minutes, you will discover the 9 situations where silence gives you status, authority, and psychological dominance. And once you see them, you will never argue the same way again. Part 1. Stay silent. When you are angry. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you are standing in a crowded room. Someone insults you publicly, not by accident, not by misunderstanding, but deliberately. You feel it instantly. Your chest tightens, your pulse rises, your jaw locks. And in that split second, a war begins. Not outside, inside. Marcus Aurelius knew this war better than anyone. He commanded legions. He ruled Rome. He faced betrayal, plague, war, famine. But the most dangerous battlefield was never Germania. It was his own mind. He wrote in his private journal, "Words never meant for applause. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Let that sink in. Say it with me quietly. Power over your mind, not outside events. Pause. Breathe in slowly, and breathe out. Anger feels powerful. It feels righteous. It feels justified. But neuroscience tells us something Marcus understood without MRI machines. When you are angry, your amygdala hijacks your rational brain. Studies from Harvard show that during intense anger, activity in the prefrontal cortex, the decision-making center, drops significantly. Translation? You literally become less intelligent. And Marcus knew this instinctively. He warned himself, how much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? Think about that. How many friendships ended in one sentence? How many careers damaged in one email? How many marriages cracked because of 10 seconds of uncontrolled speech? Data shows that 69% of workplace conflicts escalate because of reactive communication, not original disagreement. Let that number stay with you. 69%. Not because of the issue, but because of how we respond. Now imagine Marcus in the Roman Senate. A rival senator mocks him. He could respond. He has absolute power. One command and that man's life changes forever. But he chooses silence. Why? Because anger is temporary. Consequences are permanent. Say it again with me. Anger is temporary. Consequences are permanent. Pause. Breathe in. Breathe out. Modern version. You open your phone. Someone commented something disrespectful. Your fingers are ready. You type fast. You justify. You attack back. You explain. You defend. Stop. Ask yourself, will this response improve my life tomorrow? If not, silence is strength. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Notice that word, react. Reaction is automatic. Response is chosen. Marcus trained response, not reaction. There is a difference of seconds, but those seconds determine your destiny. Here is a practical exercise. The Stoic 90-second rule. When you feel anger, do nothing for 90 seconds. Research shows that the chemical surge of anger in the bloodstream peaks and begins to decline within roughly 90 seconds, if not fed by mental storytelling. So for 90 seconds, do not speak, do not type, do not decide. Just breathe. Count slowly. 1, 2, 3. Stay silent, because silence interrupts escalation. Marcus also wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." If someone acts with chaos and you respond with chaos, what changed? Nothing. You just became a mirror. But if someone acts with chaos and you respond with control, You break the pattern. And power shifts instantly. Pause again. Say this slowly. Control is power. Control is power. Control is power. Now let me tell you a story. A Roman general once lost thousands of soldiers because he responded emotionally to an insult from an enemy commander. Instead of waiting for strategy, he charged impulsively. History remembers his defeat. Marcus studied those mistakes. He understood that leadership begins with emotional discipline. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people lose opportunities not because of lack of talent, but because of emotional volatility. In leadership research across Fortune 500 companies, emotional self-regulation ranks among the top 3 predictors of executive success. Not IQ, not charisma, emotional control. Marcus Aurelius was not just a philosopher, he was a CEO of an empire. And he knew this: anger reduces clarity. Clarity creates authority. Authority builds legacy. Say it with me. Anger reduces clarity. Clarity creates authority. Authority builds legacy. Breathe. Now let's go deeper. Why does anger feel addictive? Because it gives you a short burst of control. But it is fake control. Real control is restraint. Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Delay, that is silence. Silence is delay, and delay dissolves damage. Imagine this scenario. Your partner says something unfair. You feel misunderstood. Instead of exploding, you say, "I need a moment." You step away, you breathe, you return calm. That one decision may save years of regret. Statistics from relationship research show that couples who practice emotional pause techniques during arguments reduce divorce likelihood significantly. Silence is not weakness. Silence is prevention. Now breathe again. Inhale, exhale, and listen carefully. The world rewards loud reactions. Social media rewards outrage. But long-term respect rewards composure. Marcus did not write for applause. He wrote to train himself. So ask yourself, are you training yourself daily, or are you letting your emotions train you? One more scenario. Imagine a coworker publicly criticizes your work. Your ego screams. Defend yourself. Correct them. Expose them. But instead you say calmly, "Let's discuss this privately." Silence in public. Conversation in private. That is strategic silence. Not suppression, not avoidance. Strategy. Say it again. Silence is strategy. Silence is strategy. Silence is strategy. Now, practical application. For the next 7 days, choose one situation where you normally react in anger. It could be traffic, comments, family tension, work criticism, and practice the 90-second silence rule. Journal what changes. Notice your breathing. Notice the shift in power dynamic. Notice the calm authority people begin to sense. Because here is the final truth of this section. When you master silence and anger, people cannot control you, and when people cannot control you, they respect you. Marcus conquered territories, but first he conquered impulse. If this message resonated with you, write one word in the comments: steady, because steadiness is the beginning of strength. In the next section, we will explore a different battlefield, not anger, but uncertainty. Stay with me, because the second situation is even more dangerous, and most people fail there without realizing it. Part 2, stay silent. When you don't know the whole story, picture this. You hear something shocking. A friend betrayed you. A colleague spoke badly about you. A family member made a decision without you. Your stomach drops. Your heart speeds up. Your mind fills in the missing pieces instantly. And here's the dangerous part. Your brain hates uncertainty, so it manufactures certainty. It tells a story, usually the worst one. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire where rumors could start rebellions. He understood something most people never master. Incomplete information is more dangerous than bad information. Let that settle. Say it slowly. Incomplete information is more dangerous than bad information. Pause, breathe in, breathe out. Cognitive science tells us that the human brain fills informational gaps automatically. It prefers a complete narrative over an accurate one. This is called confabulation. We don't lie on purpose. We just complete the puzzle with assumptions. And assumptions feel real. Marcus wrote in his Meditations, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Your way of thinking. Not the event, not the rumor, your interpretation." Let me tell you a Roman story. A provincial governor was accused of corruption. Crowds demanded punishment. Advisors pressured immediate action. But Marcus paused. He ordered investigation. Weeks later, evidence proved the accusations were false. Had he reacted instantly, an innocent man would have been destroyed. Now bring this to modern life. You see a message screenshot. It looks bad. You hear a partial story. It sounds terrible. You read a headline. It feels outrageous, and your reaction is immediate. But here is a statistic to consider. Research shows that 59% of news articles shared on social media are not fully read before being reposted. 59%. Most people react to headlines, not reality. Pause. Say it with me. Headlines are not truth. Headlines are not truth. Headlines are not truth. Silence creates investigation. Reaction creates escalation. Imagine this. Your coworker did not greet you today. Yesterday they seemed distant. Your mind says, "They're upset with me." You replay conversations. You build a narrative. But maybe they slept 3 hours. Maybe their child is sick. Maybe they're fighting something you cannot see. Marcus practiced what we now call cognitive distancing. He reminded himself, choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Notice that word. Choose. He didn't deny events. He chose interpretation. Let's reset. Inhale slowly, exhale slowly. When you don't know the whole story, silence protects relationships. Because reaction based on assumption damages trust. Here is a powerful exercise. The Stoic question rule. When faced with incomplete information, ask yourself, what do I actually know? Not what I think. Not what I assume. What do I know for certain? Often the answer is very little, and that humility is strength. Now imagine a scenario. Your partner receives a late-night message. You see it. Your heart tightens. Your imagination races. Instead of confrontation, you say calmly, "Help me understand." 3 words. Help me understand. Silence before accusation. Curiosity before conflict. Studies in relationship psychology show that couples who replace accusation with inquiry significantly reduce long-term resentment. Because inquiry invites truth. Accusation invites defense. Marcus governed through patience. He once delayed military action because messenger reports conflicted. While others demanded speed, he demanded clarity. Speed feels powerful. Clarity is powerful. Say it. Speed feels powerful. Clarity is powerful. Breathe. There is another trap. Ego. When you don't know the whole story, your ego wants certainty. Because uncertainty feels weak. But Stoicism teaches something radical. Uncertainty is neutral. Your reaction gives it weight. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." What is in your power? Your response. Not hidden facts, not rumors, not assumptions. Only your response. Pause again. Inhale. Exhale. Modern social media thrives on partial information. Outrage spreads faster than correction. Data shows false information spreads significantly faster online than verified truth. Why? Because it triggers emotion. Emotion overrides patience. Marcus would have been dangerous in the digital age because he would not react instantly. He would observe, investigate, reflect, and only then speak. Let's bring this closer to home. Imagine a friend cancels plans suddenly. You feel disrespected. Instead of reacting coldly, you wait. Later you learn they had a family emergency. Your silence preserved dignity. If you had reacted emotionally, you would carry regret. Say it quietly. Silence prevents regret. Silence prevents regret. Silence prevents regret. Now I want you to consider this. How many arguments in your life began because you believed something that later proved incomplete? How many conflicts could have been avoided with one pause? There is strength in saying, "I don't have enough information yet." Most people fear that sentence because it delays judgment. But judgment without clarity is chaos. Marcus trained himself to separate perception from reality. He wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. Think about that. No opinion. In a world addicted to instant takes, imagine the power of restraint. Practical application for the next 7 days. When you hear something about someone, wait 24 hours before forming a conclusion. When you read something emotional, wait 10 minutes before reacting. When you feel triggered by partial information, ask, what am I assuming? Write it down, then challenge it. You will be shocked how often your assumptions collapse under scrutiny. Pause again. Breathe. Silence is not ignorance. Silence is investigation. And investigation builds authority. Because when you finally speak, your words carry weight. People listen to those who speak less, not more. Marcus spoke rarely in emotional storms. That made his voice heavier. In the next section, we move into a battlefield even more subtle. Not anger, not incomplete information, but provocation. When someone wants your reaction, when they bait you, and most people fail there instantly. Stay with me, because the third situation reveals who truly controls your mind. Part 3, stay silent. When someone tries to bait you, there is a special kind of trap. It does not look like a trap. It looks like an insult, a joke, a sarcastic comment, a public challenge. But it is not about words, it is about control. Imagine this. You are in a room full of people. Someone says something designed to provoke you, not to understand you, not to debate with you, but to pull you. They want your reaction, because your reaction gives them power. Marcus Aurelius faced this constantly. Rival senators, ambitious generals, political manipulators. They tried to provoke him publicly. Why? Because if they could make the emperor lose composure, even for a moment, they weakened his authority. And Marcus understood something timeless. The one who controls your reaction controls you. Say it slowly. The one who controls your reaction controls you. Pause. Inhale. Exhale. Modern psychology calls this emotional hijacking through provocation. When someone baits you, they are not attacking your argument. They are attacking your stability. They want to see if you are predictable. Because predictable people are controllable. Marcus wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Read that again in your mind. Unlike him. If someone throws chaos and you throw chaos back, you become equal. If someone throws chaos and you respond with silence, you become superior. Reset. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out slowly. Let me give you a modern example. A coworker makes a sarcastic comment in a meeting. Everyone looks at you. The pressure builds. You feel the heat in your face. Your ego says, answer now. Defend yourself. Put them in their place. But here is the truth. Public responses often create public escalation. Private strength creates public respect. If you respond calmly, interesting point, and move on, you deny them fuel. Provocation without fuel dies. Research in behavioral psychology shows that behaviors reinforced by reaction continue, while behaviors ignored often diminish. In simple terms, if you don't feed it, it weakens. Say it with me. If you don't feed it, it weakens. Pause. Another scenario, social media. Someone comments something insulting. It is not constructive. It is not thoughtful. It is bait, designed to make you react, designed to draw you into argument. Statistics show that controversial posts in heated exchanges generate significantly more engagement than calm discourse. Platforms reward outrage, but your life should not. Marcus would not argue with a fool in the marketplace. He would not lower himself into noise, because he understood. You cannot win a debate with someone who only wants attention. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Let that sit. Your mind is complicit, meaning you participate, you choose. Provocation is an invitation. You decide whether to accept. Reset again. Inhale. Exhale. Think about this. Why do people bait others? Sometimes insecurity, sometimes jealousy, sometimes boredom, sometimes dominance testing. It is rarely about truth. And here is a powerful realization. If someone needs to provoke you to feel powerful, they are already weaker. You do not need to prove strength to those who test you. You demonstrate strength by refusing to perform. Marcus faced generals who questioned his decisions. He could have humiliated them publicly. Instead, he would listen, pause, respond calmly, and let his consistent composure build silent authority. Authority is not loud. Authority is steady. Say it. Authority is steady. Authority is steady. Authority is steady. Now I want you to visualize something. A rope. Two people pulling from opposite ends. That is what most arguments are. A tug of war. If you let go of the rope, what happens? The tension collapses. The game ends. Silence is letting go of the rope. But ego hates letting go. Because ego equates silence with weakness. Stoicism equates silence with mastery. Seneca wrote, "He who angers you conquers you." Short, brutal, true. He who angers you conquers you. So when someone baits you and you react emotionally, they win. Not because they were right, but because you were reactive. Reset. Breathe. Inhale slowly. Exhale slowly. Now imagine a more subtle bait. Someone questions your success. "Oh, you got lucky. Oh, that won't last. Oh, you think you're better now?" That is not curiosity. That is insecurity testing. If you argue, you validate their frame. If you smile calmly and say nothing, you stay in yours. Silence preserves frame control. Frame control determines dominance in conversation. This concept is studied in social dynamics. Whoever defines the narrative controls perception. Provocation attempts to shift the frame. Silence refuses to shift. Let that sink in. Silence refuses to shift. Practical exercise, the 3-second anchor. When someone tries to bait you, do not answer immediately. Count 3 seconds internally. 1, 2, 3. Look at them calmly. Then respond minimally or not at all. This pause disrupts the expected emotional exchange, and power shifts instantly. People expect reaction. When they do not receive it, they feel uncertain, and uncertainty weakens their attempt. Another example, family gatherings. Someone makes a passive-aggressive comment. You know the pattern. You've seen this before. Instead of escalating the family dynamic, you respond neutrally, or simply change the subject. It feels small, but it breaks cycles. Cycles exist because reactions repeat. Silence interrupts cycles. Say it again. Silence interrupts cycles. Silence interrupts cycles. Silence interrupts cycles. Pause. Breathe. There is also this truth. Some people will escalate when ignored. They will try harder, push more, provoke stronger. This is extinction burst in behavioral psychology. When a behavior no longer receives reinforcement, it temporarily intensifies before fading. Meaning, when you stop reacting, they may push harder briefly, stay steady. Eventually, the pattern weakens. Marcus endured prolonged provocation from rivals. He did not flinch publicly. Over time, composure becomes reputation. Reputation becomes shield. Shield becomes power. Say it slowly. Composure becomes reputation. Reputation becomes shield. Shield becomes power. Now reflect. How many times in your life did you regret responding to bait? How many times did silence later prove wiser? Silence is not surrender. Silence is selective engagement. You choose your battles. And often, the strongest move is refusing to play. In the next part, we enter an even more subtle trap. Not anger, not provocation, but over-explaining. The need to justify yourself. And this one destroys power quietly. Stay with me. Because if you master this next situation, people will feel your presence differently, without you saying more words. Part 4, stay silent. When you are tempted to explain yourself, there is a subtle weakness most people never notice. It sounds intelligent. It sounds reasonable. It sounds mature. But it quietly destroys authority. Over-explaining. Imagine this. Someone questions your decision, not aggressively, not loudly, just with a raised eyebrow and a slight tone. And suddenly you feel the urge to clarify, to justify, to defend, to prove your logic. Your heart races slightly. You start talking. More words, more details, more reasoning. And the more you speak, the smaller you feel. Marcus Aurelius rarely defended himself publicly. He did not hold press conferences. He did not chase approval. He wrote for himself. Why? Because he understood something powerful. The more you explain to people committed to misunderstanding you, the more you surrender your frame. Say that with me. The more you explain, the more you surrender your frame. Pause. Inhale slowly. Exhale slowly. Modern psychology calls this approval-seeking behavior. When you over-explain, you are often unconsciously asking, "Please validate me." But Stoicism does not seek validation. It seeks alignment with virtue. Marcus wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Your estimate, meaning your interpretation of how much this person's opinion matters. Reset. Breathe. Think of a courtroom. The one who speaks the most is rarely the one with the strongest case. Confidence is concise. Insecure authority is verbose. Studies in leadership communication show that high-status individuals speak less in group settings, but when they do speak, their words carry more weight. Why? Because silence creates anticipation. Over-explaining creates doubt. Imagine this scenario. A colleague says, "I'm not sure that was the best decision." You immediately begin explaining. You list reasons. You defend your logic. You try to sound rational. But here's the psychological shift. The moment you start defending excessively, you subconsciously accept their authority to judge you. Marcus never positioned himself beneath the judgment of those driven by ego. He stood by decisions calmly. If correction was needed, he corrected. If not, he remained steady. Say it slowly. Steady does not chase approval. Steady does not chase approval. Steady does not chase approval. Pause. Breathe. Now let's examine something deeper. Why do we over-explain? Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being disliked. Fear of losing status. But here's the paradox. The more you try to be understood by everyone, the less respected you become. Because true authority tolerates being misunderstood. Epictetus said, "If someone speaks badly of you, live in such a way that no one believes him." Notice, he did not say argue, he said live. Behavior is stronger than explanation. Marcus ruled through example. He did not respond to every rumor. He allowed consistency to build credibility. Now imagine a relationship. Your partner says, "You don't care." You feel hurt. Instead of listing all the ways you care, you respond calmly. "I hear that you feel that way," and you adjust behavior if necessary. Over-explaining often escalates conflict because it shifts focus from understanding to proving. Say it again. Understanding over proving. Understanding over proving. Understanding over proving. Reset. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Let's talk about status dynamics. In social hierarchies, those who explain excessively are perceived as lower status. Those who speak selectively are perceived as higher status. This is not about arrogance, it is about certainty. Marcus knew his role. He did not need external permission to occupy it. Now think about social media. Someone criticizes your perspective. You write paragraphs, you cite sources, you defend, you clarify, you argue. And what happens? The thread grows, your energy drains, your calm disappears. And rarely does the critic change their mind. Because most public criticism is not a search for truth. It is a search for attention. Silence denies attention. Say it slowly. Silence denies attention. Silence denies attention. Silence denies attention. Pause. Breathe. There is another layer. Over-explaining creates negotiable identity. When you constantly justify yourself, you signal uncertainty about who you are. Marcus was certain, not because he was always right, but because he accepted responsibility without panic. If wrong, correct calmly. If right, remain calm. Either way, calm. Seneca wrote, "The wise man is self-sufficient." Self-sufficient does not mean isolated. It means internally stable. Now imagine this situation. You say no to something. Someone asks why. You explain. They push. You explain more. They challenge. You defend further. And suddenly your no becomes a debate. But no is a complete sentence. Say it. No is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. Pause. Breathe in. Breathe out. Practical exercise. The 10-word rule. When explaining a decision, limit yourself to one short sentence. No long justifications. No emotional defense. Example, I've decided to move in a different direction, and stop. Notice how uncomfortable silence feels after that. That discomfort is ego detox. The more comfortable you become with silence after your statement, the stronger your presence becomes. Another reset. Inhale. Exhale. Remember this. People who matter will understand with fewer words. People who want to misunderstand will not understand with more words. Let that settle. Marcus endured criticism from historians, philosophers, rivals. He did not rewrite himself to satisfy every voice. He focused on virtue, character over commentary. Say it slowly. Character over commentary. Character over commentary. Character over commentary. Final reflection. How many times have you drained yourself explaining to someone who never intended to understand? How much energy have you lost defending your choices? Imagine redirecting that energy toward action instead. Because here is the Stoic truth. When your actions are consistent, explanations become unnecessary. When your behavior aligns with your values, silence speaks for you. In the next part, we enter a powerful battlefield, not explanation, but secrecy. When you are building something fragile, and talking too early can destroy it. Stay with me, because mastering silence while building will change your trajectory permanently. Part 5. Stay silent when you are building your plan. There is something fragile about beginnings, a seed beneath the soil, a blueprint in early sketch form, an idea not yet tested, a goal not yet proven. When something is new, it is vulnerable, and most people destroy their own momentum by talking too early. Imagine Marcus Aurelius preparing for war. Strategies forming, movements planned, logistics aligned. Would he announce every detail publicly? Of course not, because premature exposure weakens power. Say it with me. Premature exposure weakens power. Pause. Inhale slowly. Exhale slowly. Modern neuroscience reveals something fascinating. When you tell people about a goal, your brain releases dopamine, the same reward chemical you get when you actually accomplish something. In other words, talking about the goal can trick your brain into feeling like you've already progressed, and that false satisfaction reduces real effort. Let that settle. Talking feels like doing, but talking is not doing. Marcus understood discipline. He wrote in Meditations, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Notice the clarity. Be one. Not announce one. Not describe one. Not convince others you are becoming one. Just be. Reset. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now imagine this. You decide to start a business, or transform your body, or change your habits. You feel excited. You tell friends. You post about it. You explain your vision. People respond with mixed reactions. Some support, some doubt, some subtle envy. And suddenly the fragile seed absorbs external energy. Opinions become weight. Weight slows movement. Marcus did not broadcast transformation. He lived it quietly. He governed through steady action. History respected him not because he promised greatness, but because he embodied it. Say it slowly. Embodied, not announced. Embodied, not announced. Embodied, not announced. Pause. There is another layer. When you talk about plans too early, you invite judgment before progress. Judgment before progress creates pressure. Pressure without results creates insecurity. Insecurity creates hesitation, and hesitation kills momentum. Behavioral studies show that individuals who publicly declare goals prematurely often reduce long-term follow-through. Why? Because social acknowledgement substitutes internal drive. Internal drive must remain hungry. Silence protects hunger. Say it with me. Silence protects hunger. Silence protects hunger. Silence protects hunger. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Consider a craftsman. He works alone in a workshop. Dust in the air. Quiet focus. No applause. No validation. Only repetition. That repetition builds mastery. Marcus spent years writing private reflections no one was meant to read. He sharpened himself in solitude. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Most people want recognition more than growth. They want visibility more than discipline. They want applause before achievement. But Stoicism teaches something radical. Visibility without substance collapses. Substance without visibility builds quietly. And when substance matures, visibility becomes unavoidable. Pause. Breathe. Now imagine a more personal scenario. You are improving yourself. You stop reacting emotionally. You wake up earlier. You exercise. You read. You control your habits. People notice, and they ask questions. What are you doing? You can smile. You can say, just focusing, and continue, because explanation invites evaluation. Evaluation invites commentary. Commentary invites doubt. Marcus did not argue about virtue. He practiced it. Now let's talk about energy. Every time you explain your unfinished plan, you disperse energy outward. Every time you act quietly, you consolidate energy inward. Energy inward builds results. Energy outward builds noise. Say it slowly. Energy inward builds results. Energy outward builds noise. Reset. Inhale. Exhale. There is also protection in silence. When something is fragile, silence shields it from negativity. Not because negativity has magical power, but because your mind absorbs suggestion. If 10 people subtly doubt your plan, even if you say it doesn't affect you, your subconscious processes that information. Silence reduces external interference. Marcus moved strategically. He did not reveal military intentions prematurely, because surprise strengthens execution. In modern life, strategic silence gives you leverage. Imagine announcing a career move only after the offer is signed. Imagine revealing a project only after completion. The impact multiplies. Quiet effort, loud result. Say it with me. Quiet effort, loud result. Quiet effort, loud result. Quiet effort, loud result. Pause. Breathe. Let me share a principle. Talk less, execute more. This is not about secrecy out of fear. It is about protection of momentum. Momentum is sacred. Once broken, it takes enormous effort to rebuild. Ask yourself, how many goals died because you talked about them too early? How many plans lost intensity after receiving external validation? There is strength in mystery. There is power in surprise. Marcus did not perform leadership. He embodied leadership. And embodiment does not require constant announcement. Now, practical exercise for the next 30 days. Choose one major goal. Tell no one, not because you fear judgment, but because you value focus. Track progress privately. When results appear, reveal them calmly. Notice the difference. Notice the shift in confidence. Notice the stability, because when you build silently, you develop internal validation. And internal validation cannot be taken from you. Final reset. Inhale slowly. Exhale slowly. Remember this: seeds grow in darkness. Plans mature in silence. Discipline strengthens in solitude. In the next section, we move to another powerful situation. When someone intentionally misunderstands you, and silence becomes a boundary. Stay with me, because mastering that silence changes how people treat you permanently. Part 6, stay silent. When someone misunderstands you on purpose. There is a difference between confusion and manipulation. Confusion asks questions. Manipulation pretends not to understand. Picture this. You explain something clearly. They twist it. You clarify again. They distort it further. You restate your intention. They reshape your words into something darker. And suddenly you are trapped in an endless loop. You think, if I just explain it better, they will understand. But here is the truth. They already understand. They just don't want to. Marcus Aurelius encountered this often. Political rivals who pretended to misinterpret him. Advisors who twisted policies for personal leverage. He could argue endlessly, but he knew something powerful. You cannot reason someone out of a position they did not reason themselves into. Say it slowly. You cannot reason someone out of what they did not reason themselves into. Pause, inhale, exhale. Modern psychology calls this bad faith engagement. When someone engages not to seek clarity, but to exhaust you. and exhaustion creates vulnerability. Marcus understood emotional economy. Not every misunderstanding deserves correction. Some misunderstandings reveal intent. If someone is committed to seeing you as wrong, your explanation becomes fuel. Silence becomes a boundary. Say it with me. Silence is a boundary. Silence is a boundary. Silence is a boundary. Reset. Breathe. Imagine a conversation. You say, I value discipline. They reply, so you think you're better than everyone. You respond calmly, that's not what I said. They push further, so you're judging others. Notice the pattern. They are reframing your statement into accusation. This is not confusion. This is narrative manipulation. Marcus would not chase such distortions. He anchored to principle. He wrote, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Harm does not always mean physical. It means reputation, interpretation, opinion. If you do not internalize the distortion, it loses power. Pause, breathe deeply. Now ask yourself, why would someone deliberately misunderstand you? Sometimes ego threat, sometimes insecurity, sometimes control. When people feel threatened, they try to shrink you. One method is distortion. If they cannot compete with your discipline, they call you obsessive. If they cannot match your ambition, they call you arrogant. If they cannot handle your boundaries, they call you cold. Notice the pattern. Projection. Marcus knew projection existed long before psychology named it. He did not correct every mislabel, because correction often invites more distortion. Epictetus said, if someone speaks badly of you, do not defend yourself. Instead say, he must not know my other faults, else he would not have mentioned only these. Humility disarms. Silence frustrates manipulation. Now let's bring this to modern life. Online debates. Someone twists your statement. You write paragraphs clarifying. They screenshot selectively. They reframe again. And now you are performing for spectators. The trap is complete. The moment you try to convince someone committed to misunderstanding you, you step into their arena. And in their arena, they control rules. Silence removes you from their stage. Say it slowly. Silence removes you from their stage. Silence removes you from their stage. Silence removes you from their stage. Pause. Inhale. Exhale. There is also this truth. Explaining yourself repeatedly to someone who distorts you trains them that distortion works. They learn, if I twist his words, he will chase me. And chasing signals lower position. Marcus did not chase narratives. He let consistency build reputation. Over time, behavior defeats distortion. Reputation outlasts rumor. Say it. Reputation outlasts rumor. Reputation outlasts rumor. Reputation outlasts rumor. Now let's talk about boundaries. A boundary is not a speech. It is a line. Sometimes that line is silence. If someone repeatedly twists your words, you can say calmly, I've explained my position. I'm not continuing this. And stop. No anger, no justification. Just stop. This creates discomfort because most people are uncomfortable with unresolved tension. But unresolved tension is not weakness. It is emotional independence. Reset, breathe, inhale slowly, exhale slowly. Imagine a workplace scenario. A colleague repeatedly reframes your contributions as criticism. You correct once, twice, 3 times. Nothing changes. At some point, correction becomes self-sabotage. Silence shifts from explanation to observation. And observation builds leverage. You document. You stay composed. You escalate strategically if needed. But you do not emotionally debate. Marcus governed with restraint. He did not allow every distorted opinion to shape his peace. Because peace is internal, not negotiated. Say it slowly. Peace is internal. Peace is internal. Peace is internal. Now a deeper insight. Some misunderstandings are tests. If you rush to defend every accusation, you reveal insecurity. If you remain calm and selective, you signal strength. Strength attracts respect. Insecurity attracts challenge. Pause. Breathe. Here is a practical exercise. The 3-strike rule. If someone misrepresents your words, correct once calmly. If they repeat the distortion, restate once briefly. If they distort again, End the conversation. No emotional escalation, no further engagement. Notice how much energy this saves. Energy conserved builds power. Energy wasted builds resentment. Final reflection. How much of your life have you spent explaining yourself to those who never intended to understand? How much energy have you lost in endless clarifications? Marcus did not argue with shadows. He focused on virtue, because virtue speaks longer than words. In the next section, we move into a quieter battlefield. Gossip, where silence becomes dignity. Stay with me, because mastering silence and gossip changes how rooms respond when you enter them. Part 7, Stay Silent. When gossip is the currency. There is a room you have entered many times. The conversation is casual. Someone lowers their voice slightly. A name is mentioned. Then another. And suddenly the air changes. It feels exciting, confidential, exclusive. Gossip has begun. Gossip feels powerful because it creates artificial intimacy. You are in the know. You feel included. But inclusion at the cost of integrity is expensive. Marcus Aurelius lived in a palace filled with whispers, political plots, private scandals, strategic rumors. He could have used gossip as a weapon, but he rarely engaged in it because he understood something most people miss. When gossip becomes the currency of a room, character becomes the casualty. Say that slowly. When gossip becomes currency, character becomes casualty. Pause. Inhale. Exhale. Modern psychology shows that gossip activates reward circuits in the brain. It stimulates dopamine. Why? Because information about others gives us perceived social leverage. But perceived leverage is not real strength. Real strength is self-restraint. Marcus wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." A good person does not build connection by diminishing others. Let's reset. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out slowly. Now imagine this. At work, a colleague starts criticizing another coworker. You are invited into the circle. You can nod. You can add a detail. You can strengthen the narrative. And instantly, you belong. But here is the unseen cost. The moment you participate in gossip, you train the room that you are safe to gossip with, which also means you are safe to gossip about. Trust decreases silently, respect erodes quietly, and reputation shifts subtly. Say it with me. If they gossip with me, they will gossip about me. Pause, inhale, exhale. Marcus knew court politics. He knew information could be used as leverage, but he also knew silence builds authority, because people observe patterns. The one who never speaks ill of others gains invisible influence. People become cautious around them, and caution creates power. Now let's go deeper. Why do people gossip? Sometimes boredom, sometimes insecurity, sometimes competition, sometimes bonding, but rarely virtue. Gossip bonds through negativity. Stoicism bonds through principle. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." Ask yourself, do you want to be someone whose voice weakens others, or someone whose silence strengthens presence? Reset. Breathe. There is also a strategic dimension. In environments where gossip thrives, neutrality is rare. When you remain silent, you disrupt the pattern. At first, people may test you. They may try to pull you in again. But consistency builds identity. Soon, your name is not associated with whispers. It is associated with composure. Composure becomes reputation. Reputation becomes shield. Shield becomes power. Say it slowly. Composure becomes reputation. Reputation becomes shield. Shield becomes power. Pause. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Now imagine a family setting. A relative criticizes another family member. You are invited to agree. Instead, you say, "I hope they're doing okay." Neutral, calm, non-participatory. Notice the shift in energy. You neither attack nor defend. You redirect. Silence plus redirection maintains dignity. Behavioral research suggests that social groups often test boundaries to determine status roles. If you participate in negativity, you signal availability for lower-level dynamics. If you abstain calmly, you signal self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency commands respect. Marcus did not need to align himself with petty alliances. He aligned with virtue. Virtue does not require whispering. Virtue requires discipline. Now another reset. Inhale, exhale. Consider the long-term effect of gossip. It weakens trust networks. It spreads insecurity. It creates anxiety. People begin to guard themselves around those who gossip. But around those who remain silent, people relax. And relaxed environments gravitate towards steady individuals. That is influence. Influence is not loud, it is magnetic. Say it. Influence is magnetic. Influence is magnetic. Influence is magnetic. Pause, breathe. There is also something deeper. Gossip reveals more about the speaker than the subject. When someone constantly speaks about others, it signals internal instability. Marcus focused inward. He wrote about self-examination, not other examination. He disciplined his own mind, and that discipline reflected outward. Now ask yourself honestly, when you leave a room, what do people associate with you? Noise or steadiness, drama or composure? The Stoic chooses long-term respect over short-term belonging. Belonging built on negativity collapses. Respect built on restraint compounds. Let that settle. Practical exercise, the neutral pivot. When gossip begins, do not add information, do not confirm, do not deny. Instead, pivot, change topic, or respond with neutral empathy. Example, that sounds complicated. Then move forward. You neither validate nor attack. You disengage, and disengagement protects identity. Final reset. Inhale slowly, exhale slowly. Remember this. Rooms test character quietly. Your silence speaks loudly. Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome, but he ruled himself first, and ruling yourself includes ruling your tongue. In the next section, we move into a powerful moment. When you are winning, when success tempts you to speak, and silence protects what you are building. Stay with me, because success without silence attracts danger. Part 8, stay silent. When you are winning, success changes the room. Not loudly at first, subtly. You start improving, you grow calmer, stronger, more disciplined, more focused. People notice. They may not say it, but they feel it. And here is the danger. When you are winning, ego wants to speak. It wants to celebrate loudly. It wants recognition. It wants validation. Marcus Aurelius led Rome at the height of imperial power. He commanded armies. He secured borders. He stabilized crises. Yet he never performed his victories. He reflected privately. He reminded himself of impermanence. He wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." Say that slowly. Receive without pride. Let go without attachment. Pause, inhale, exhale. Success invites attention. Attention invites scrutiny. Scrutiny invites envy. Envy invites resistance. The more visible your success, the more fragile it becomes if not grounded in silence. Modern psychology confirms this. Visible displays of success increase social comparison, and social comparison triggers envy in others. Envy rarely announces itself openly. It hides as criticism, as sarcasm, as backhanded compliments. You've changed. You're different now. Must be nice. These are not always support. Sometimes they are subtle recalibration attempts. When you are rising, others unconsciously measure themselves against you. And if they feel smaller, they may try to reduce you. Silence protects you from unnecessary confrontation. Say it with me. Silence protects progress. Silence protects progress. Silence protects progress. Reset. Breathe slowly. There is also internal danger. When you speak too much about your success, you shift focus from growth to image. Image maintenance drains energy. Growth builds energy. Marcus did not define himself by public applause. He defined himself by internal discipline. He constantly reminded himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. That awareness removes arrogance. It removes the illusion of permanence. When you remember impermanence, pride softens. Soft pride is stable. Loud pride attracts correction. History is filled with leaders who fell not because of weakness, but because of visible arrogance. Victory intoxicates. Intoxication clouds judgment. Clouded judgment invites downfall. Pause. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Let's bring this into modern life. You start making more money, you improve your physique, you build a business, you gain followers, you become calmer in conflict, you feel powerful, and the temptation is to show it, to post about it, to subtly signal status. But here is the Stoic discipline. Move quietly, because quiet success compounds. Loud success competes. Compounding creates long-term stability. Competing creates short-term noise. Say it slowly. Compounding builds empires. Competing builds attention. Pause. Breathe. There is also strategic value in underestimation. When people underestimate you, they lower resistance. When they feel threatened, they increase resistance. Marcus did not posture dominance. He embodied it. That embodiment made him unpredictable. And unpredictability creates leverage. Imagine this. You secure a major deal. Instead of broadcasting it immediately, you refine your system. You strengthen your infrastructure. You prepare for scale. By the time others notice, your foundation is already strong. Silence allowed preparation. Preparation ensured stability. Say it. Preparation loves silence. Preparation loves silence. Preparation loves silence. Reset. Inhale. Exhale. There is another truth. When you celebrate excessively, you invite comparison. Comparison creates narrative. Narrative creates opposition. Opposition creates distraction. Distraction weakens focus. Focus is your greatest asset. Marcus remained focused on duty. Duty anchors success. Ego destabilizes it. Now consider the emotional dynamic. When you are winning, people watch for cracks. If you boast, they look for failure. If you remain calm, they look for consistency. Consistency builds trust. Trust builds influence. Influence builds power. Say it slowly. Consistency builds trust. Trust builds influence. Influence builds power. Pause. Breathe. There is humility in silent success. Not false humility, not performative modesty, but grounded awareness. The Stoic knows that fortune changes, markets shift, health fluctuates, circumstances evolve. Silence protects against over-attachment, because attachment to praise creates fear of loss, and fear of loss destabilizes judgment. Marcus faced plague, war, political instability. He had victories. He had setbacks. He remained steady. Steady wins longer than loud. Say it. Steady wins longer than loud. Steady wins longer than loud. Steady wins longer than loud. Now a practical exercise. When you achieve something meaningful, pause before announcing. Ask yourself, is this sharing for value or for validation? If it is for validation, stay silent. If it is for value, speak calmly. That distinction preserves integrity. Reset. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Remember this. Success is safest in silence. Not because you hide it, but because you stabilize it. In the final section, we step into the deepest form of silence. Not for strategy, not for dominance, not for protection, but for compassion. When words cannot improve the moment, and presence becomes power. Stay with me, because the final situation reveals the highest level of Stoic silence. Part 9, Stay Silent. When words cannot improve the moment, there are moments when strategy no longer matters, when ego is irrelevant, when dominance, status, argument, and control dissolve. Moments of grief, moments of loss, moments of exhaustion, moments when someone is breaking in front of you, and the instinct is to speak, to fix, to explain, to give advice, to fill the silence. But not every silence needs to be filled. Marcus Aurelius lived through plague, war, the death of children, betrayal by close allies. He understood suffering deeply, and he understood something profound. Sometimes words are noise. Presence is power. Say that slowly. Presence is power. Pause. Inhale gently. Exhale slowly. When someone you care about is in pain, your mind searches for solutions. But pain is not always asking for solution. It is asking for witness. Modern psychology confirms this. Emotional validation reduces distress more effectively than unsolicited advice. When someone feels heard, their nervous system regulates. When someone feels corrected, their defenses activate. Silence can be validation, a steady gaze, a calm breath, a hand on a shoulder. Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. In moments of suffering, you cannot control events, but you can control your response. And often the strongest response is quiet strength." Reset. Breathe slowly. Imagine a friend loses someone they love. You say nothing profound. You sit beside them. You do not rush their tears. You do not force optimism. You simply remain. That silence communicates, "I am here." And "I am here" is sometimes the most powerful sentence never spoken. Say it in your mind. I am here. Pause, inhale, exhale. There is a deep insecurity in many of us. We feel uncomfortable in silence. So we fill it. We offer cliques. It will get better. Everything happens for a reason. But Stoicism does not minimize suffering. It accepts reality without dramatizing it. Epictetus taught acceptance, not denial. And acceptance often looks like calm stillness. Now imagine a different scenario. Someone is angry, not attacking you, but overwhelmed. Instead of defending or correcting, you allow space. You let the emotional storm pass. Neuroscience shows that intense emotional states often dissipate when not resisted. Silence can act as an emotional regulator for the room. Say it slowly. Silence regulates emotion. Silence regulates emotion. Silence regulates emotion. Pause, breathe deeply. Inhale slowly. Exhale slowly. Marcus faced soldiers broken by war, citizens terrified by plague. He did not offer grand speeches every time. Sometimes leadership is quiet endurance, and quiet endurance stabilizes chaos. There is also humility in silence. Admitting you do not have the perfect words. Admitting that not everything requires commentary. Admitting that sometimes your role is not to lead the moment, but to hold the moment. Holding space is strength. Say it. Holding space is strength. Holding space is strength. Holding space is strength. Reset. Breathe. Think of a child who is afraid. They do not need philosophy. They need calm presence. Think of a partner exhausted by life. They do not need analysis. They need steadiness. Think of a colleague overwhelmed. They do not need correction. They need quiet understanding. Marcus ruled externally, but internally he cultivated tranquility. He trained himself not to panic in chaos, and that calm became contagious. Calm spreads. So does anxiety. Which do you want to spread? Pause. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. There is also dignity in silence. When someone apologizes sincerely, you do not lecture, you acknowledge. When someone confesses vulnerability, you do not dominate, you receive. Silence in these moments communicates respect. Now reflect. How often have you spoken when silence would have been more powerful? How often have you rushed to fill discomfort? What if you trusted stillness instead? Stillness carries authority. Stillness carries empathy. Stillness carries control. Say it slowly. Stillness carries control. Stillness carries empathy. Stillness carries authority. Pause. Breathe. This final form of silence is not about dominance. It is about depth. Not about winning, but about grounding. When words cannot improve the moment, do not use them. When explanation adds nothing, do not force it. When advice is not requested, do not offer it. Be present. And presence is rare. Rare things are powerful. Marcus Aurelius mastered many forms of silence. Silence in anger, silence in uncertainty, silence in provocation, silence in over-explanation, silence in ambition, silence in distortion, silence in gossip, silence in success, and finally, silence in compassion. If you have listened this far, understand this. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. Silence is strategy. Silence is boundary. Silence is dignity. Silence is protection. Silence is growth. Silence is presence. Choose one of the 9 situations, just one. Practice it this week. Notice how people respond differently to you. Notice how your internal stability increases. Comment one word: steady, because steadiness is the foundation of Stoic strength. Subscribe to Making Life Better. And in the next journey, we go deeper into the mind of Marcus Aurelius, not to speak louder, but to become unshakable. Silence is not passive, it is calculated power. If you made it this far, you are not average. You are someone who wants control over emotion, over ego, over reaction, and that already puts you ahead of most people. Most chase validation, Stoics chase mastery. If this message resonated with you, then you are building mental strength, discipline, and authority without noise. This channel, Making Life Better, exists for people who choose growth over drama. Silence is a skill, and skills can be trained. So if you want to master control, strategy, and Stoic discipline in a world addicted to noise, subscribe to Making Life Better and join a community that moves in silence but builds empires. And remember, the loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest.